Well, folks, if a local police department doesn't have that in effect now, we are in a sad position. Somebody said the other day, looting is a racial term. Are we kidding each other? I mean, are we all lost our minds? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching Clem's Corner. I want to thank everyone for watching episode 1 and subscribing to this new channel. One of the things that I always look at try to look at when I view a video, and this is across the board for YouTubers, I never understood why people don't give their qualifications or their background. I'm going to very quickly list my background. I don't know if they're qualifications and what their qualifications for, to be honest with you, at this stage. I'm 62 years old. I'm a lawyer. I graduated law school in 1981. I was a prosecutor, local county prosecutor for a fairly big county in New York. And I did that for 20 years. I was chief of the Homicide Bureau, the Trial Division, and rose to the ranks of Chief Assistant District Attorney. As a prosecutor, I dealt many times, obviously, with police officers. After I retired from the District Attorney's office, I went into private practice, criminal defense, and matrimonial law. In doing criminal defense work, I also had dealings with police officers and looking at it from a different point of view. I want to start today with a topic of concern to all of us. Let's talk about police. I have been saying for many years that the police need better training. You watch news today and the experts talk about, the police are the best trained and best equipped they ever have been. I disagree with that statement as a general statement. The police are best equipped that they ever have been historically. Are they trained very well in the use of the new weapons and surveillance equipment, etc.? Yes, they are. But what they're lacking is training in dealing with the community, in dealing with individuals. The recent events lead us to one direction. The police are racist. The police are biased. They unnecessarily shoot black men. And by the way, parenthetically, we like to see and do some research for the future as to how many white men the police officers have killed in this country.
Only 9 black people were killed unarmed by the police, shot and killed last year. There were 19 whites who were unarmed who were shot and killed by the police last year.
But in any event, the concept of training, and I have been I've witnessed training, I've participated in police training. The police are trained initially to obtain the ultimate control over the situation. And every police officer will substantiate this. Police officers are very afraid when they do normal traffic stops. That is the most dangerous thing for a police officer to do. Obviously, reporting to domestic disputes is up in those ranks as well. I was actually laughing the other day when I heard a black athlete begin to describe how it feels as a young black man to get stopped by police officers and that he sees the lights behind him and he's petrified. Again, it's divisiveness. That black athlete is no different than a white person getting stopped. I've dealt with police officers, as I've said, for years and years. I hopefully know how to talk to them. I know how to be kind to them. Many of my friends, I like police officers generally. But as a white man, when I see a light flashing behind me and I get stopped, and I have gotten stopped for no reason, I get nervous. It's not because I'm black or white or purple. It's because it's a police officer behind you, stopping you for some alleged violation, obviously. It's not a black thing necessarily. I have nephews who were stopped by police for no reason other than in their cars. They're interrogated by police officers. No reasonable suspicion to stop them, etc. So it's not only the blacks that suffer from this. What happens when a police officer tries to maintain control is that they are not nice. And we are not talking about people who are black, white, any color. It makes no difference. They are not nice to people. I hate the expression, we pay their salaries. We do pay their salaries. We pay them to be nice to us. If we are speeding, we do not appreciate cops coming to our window and start treating us like we are third-rate citizens. understand that they're fearful, but they can also do things in a more, in a gentle and more trained and professional manner. So where does that lead us with shootings? You have to look at each individual circumstance. Obviously, in Minneapolis, that was not a shooting. I think everybody fairly agrees with that. It was a murder or some type of manslaughter. What we can't do is attribute the actions of that police officer to the entire police world out there. Okay, in any given company, agency, you're going to have a bad apple. Okay, those people need to be seeded out. I understand that police officer in Minneapolis had several complaints against him, maybe a dozen or more. The obligation to monitor the police departments falls with that department. It falls within that local municipality. Police departments are not under the auspices of the federal government, as well they shouldn't be. The military cannot make citizens arrests. They are, under the law, permitted to aid local officials in making arrests. This is not a federal issue. This is a local, town, and municipality police department training issue. Yes, police should be trained on how to use weapons, how to take the upper hand when necessary, but they have to be taught when to back down. The taser incident down in Atlanta recently, where the police officer shot the individual. The man is asleep in a drive-thru at a fast food restaurant. He is blocking the traffic. How many of you have fallen asleep drunk blocking the drive-thru in your local food establishment? The police officers then proceed to make an arrest of the person, do a sobriety check, and they make an arrest. How many of you have fallen asleep drunk in a drive-thru window, stopped by a police officer,
put your hands behind your back,
beginning to get handcuffed, and you start swinging and flailing at the police officers? I venture to say, not very many of you now. We're starting to get whittle this down a little bit. The police officer's taser is stolen. Georgia has two types of tasers that are permissible. One is given to the citizens. That is not a projectile. And the other issued to law enforcement police officers in Georgia are what they call projectile tasers. The cop's taser was stolen. The cop gives chase. The person turns around. The cop needs to make a split-second decision. The police officer is not sure that it is actually a taser. Many weapons, some of you may not know this, many weapons have optical sights that are laser oriented. Number one, yes, did the cops do a preliminary search? Somebody broached this with me before. A preliminary search on the street is different than a full search at the police department. The police officers can never be sure whether a person has a weapon on a cursory search on the street. I have seen cases where the police officers have searched people on the street, and the person goes back to headquarters, and the cops secure weapons from that individual, whether knives or guns. I saw a so-called prominent person on the news the other day, and he's saying, "Why did they just let him walk home with the taser?" Folks, we cannot have anarchy in this country. We cannot have police officers' items stolen from them. That is classified as a weapon in Georgia. Even if the police officer was tased, the person would have gone home. How do they know that? If a police officer is tased, obviously there's some kind of debilitation. That's why they issued it to begin with. How do people know that that individual wasn't going to then run back and take the cop's gun and endanger the rest of the community? We have to look at police officers who make split-second decisions. Minneapolis wasn't a split second, folks. That was minutes. Those were minutes. That officer had a choice to make, and that's why that's murder. So you have to look at each individual circumstance. All right, I jumped from the training of the police officers being local, and that's necessary. Each of the municipalities, the leaders, the supervisors, the mayors, whatever they are, the county executives on that level must assure that the police officers are trained in community relations. We must be careful with politicians grandstanding at this point. Governor Cuomo in New York signed, and he was touted, a great bill. Police officers have to report a discharge of their weapons to their supervisors, verbally and in writing within a certain period of time. Well, folks, if a local police department doesn't have that in effect now, we are in a sad position. I certainly would hope a supervisor knows that a cop discharged his gun on his tour. I eventually guess he knows immediately, not within the 6 or 8 hours that Cuomo says it has to be done. Then the other part of this bill, there were 3 parts, but I'll jump to the third part, is for the police to report the race of individuals who are arrested for misdemeanors and violations. Why? If we are going to be race neutral in this country, it's time to start being race neutral. If you have people who violate somebody's civil rights, they have to be dealt with sternly. But this is not a race issue. This is a training issue dealing with the cops. Bills that have really little to do with the underlying problem. It's politicians. They're politicians who every year propose new laws that not only restrict our freedom, but new laws that are not necessary. We have plenty of laws on our books that can deal with the crimes that we have today. No one's saying that we should not deal with race or racism, I should say, when it occurs, and it should be dealt with sternly. But what we have are people creating more divisiveness, wearing T-shirts that are divisive. If we should profess to be race neutral, you cannot wipe out history. It's important for somebody to look at a particular statue and a parent or a teacher telling them, this person did this person was that with slavery. If you wipe out that, people in future generations won't know what it is. Our children today, I personally do not know anyone who is racist. I don't know of anyone whose children were raised to be racist. What this is doing is putting in their minds and causing dissension, whites against blacks. I was listening to another prominent a black economist the other day, and I mentioned black because he gives a profound viewpoint. He said that we cannot cause and go back to the civil rights action movement again. This is what this is. We have been through that. The politicians calling for reparations. Biden saying he's for reparations, we got to look at the details, and maybe even the Native Americans. What about the Japanese, folks? What about the Italians, the Irish, the Jews? Where are all the reparations going? That prominent commentator, that black commentator, said that the blacks have never had more opportunities in this country, that it's time for the blacks to take responsibility for their actions and their children's actions. Teach them to learn, to read and write. Don't let them go throughout and carry on in the parks. Take them to a museum. Most museums you can get into free. There are opportunities to teach them, assimilate into society. Last point for today, because I know we're going on for a bit, is the looters. These people are not defending a particular position. They're hoodlums and they're looters. Somebody said the other day, looting is a racial term. Are we kidding each other? I mean, are we all lost our minds? By saying that person is racist in and of himself because he's saying all looters are of a minority. I don't think that's true. I've seen videos with whites looting. So looters, when Trump says looters, you loot, you shoot. Looters are thugs. They're burglars. They're criminals hurting individual people's businesses that have nothing to do at all with the police brutality, allegations of police brutality. Nothing, zero. Why loot these people? Why destroy their livelihoods? These thugs have taken over what they call now it's going to be their sovereign area, 6 blocks in Seattle. Okay? They're forming their own government. They're hoodlums. They have firearms. They're killing the local businesses. Why? What keeps those people, who do they think they are to take over a part of what we call is a public domain? That belongs to all of us. It doesn't belong to them. And it's time that they learn that it's not theirs. I want to thank you for watching episode 2. I hope we touched on, I know we touched on a bunch of subjects. Hopefully as time goes on, we can get more in depth with this. Again, thank you for watching episode 2.